These days, there's a lot of talk about climate change, global warming, how we can stop it, how it started. Generally, this is probably going to be one of the best, but also the worst videos, and we'll explain all this in normal English. So, if you don't speak science, you're in luck. In the Oxford Dictionary, climate change is defined as the Earth's increase in temperature, and it is usually caused by some gases like carbon dioxide, methane, that kind of stuff, and it's usually caused by humans. Things like fossil fuels, large farming, and there's lots of other things that we'll talk about later, cause it. The four sectors of climate change, or of climate, are the hydrosphere, which is the ocean and water, the lithosphere, which is the land, the atmosphere, which is the air, and the cryosphere, which is like our ice and our polar ice caps. These are all affected by climate change, and they're all interconnected. For example, the ocean produces a lot of our oxygen, and if the ocean dies, we have no oxygen, and we will more than likely die. And there's many other examples. If the cryosphere melts, the seawater will rise, and that will make all seaside cities unlivable. Another thing a lot of people talk about is carbon and other things, and the greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect is certain gases. There's like CO2, CH4, and N2O. Other gases, they block heat from escaping, so the heat comes in from the sun, and it gets trapped there like in a greenhouse. Over the last 100 years, we've released tons and tons and tons of greenhouse gases that are heating the Earth up. When heat enters the atmosphere, it gets trapped and, like I said, heats it up like a greenhouse. One of the biggest causes, and the ones we're focusing on right now, is carbon dioxide, released in things like cars, and released by vehicles and fossil fuels and other things like that. And if you look at this graph right here, you can see over the last 800,000 years, the carbon levels have went up and down a lot. Since 1950, they have skyrocketed to higher than they have been in 800,000 years. And if you also look at this graph right here, nice graph, eh? You can see that temperature follows it a lot. So if we would find one, if the carbon goes up or the temperature goes up, the carbon or temperature follows. And yes, over the last couple decades, it has risen considerably to around 410 parts per million, which is very bad. So in the future, the effects will be very, very, very bad. Things like the sea levels will rise, droughts will increase, it will heat up, which you may think, hey, that's nice, but no, it's going to melt the polar ice caps. Again, like I said, raising water levels, which will make a lot of seaside cities unlivable. Places like Manhattan will be flooded, San Francisco, other big cities that are on the coast that I can't think of, Miami, all those big cities on the coast, they will be underwater, and you can't live underwater because we're not fish. Okay, so the Paris Accord is an agreement that some countries have signed to lower their carbon dioxide output. It's important in the future so that we can not die. Canada's agreements were that they would try to lower the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees, or the global average increase in temperature to below 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, and pursuing efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. So that means releasing few carbon dioxide and other stuff like that, so that we can try to keep the climate change rise below 1.5 degrees, or at most 2 degrees, which is good. We're trying to do that. Another thing that's talked about a lot is carbon tax. And what they are is, by the name, carbon tax. It is the amount put on your amount of carbon you released. It is about now $20 per ton of CO2 you release in 2019. Right now, I couldn't find it as easily. But, it's a good start, I think, because it will, get a bit more money off of gas use, and hopefully we can put that into more efforts into, switching to cleaner energy. So the biggest question in all of this is, how do we solve climate change? And this is a very tough question, but here's the problem. Person to person, it's very tough to do a lot. So let's just say I switch completely to solar power or whatever, there's still 7.5 billion other people on the planet. What's they're gonna do? So unless we get the world the whole world and governments to work together, we really can't do it. And we need like businesses to help as well. Like big business needs to help, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just tough in general because like there's so many people on this earth. If a majority doesn't do what we're supposed to do, it doesn't matter as much. Like let's just say even our province does all of this, switches completely to green energy and all this stuff, it doesn't really matter. We need the world to do it. And person to person, a lot of those things, they help, but we need to, as the human race, kind of work together to do this. Some people were saying,
Excuse me, interruption. Could I please get a custodian to the elementary boys washroom?
Not again.
Anyway, like I was saying, you know, all those things like, oh, biking to work, turning off your lights, using a low flush toilet, those are all good, but really we need to do something big. And people were saying, like, we need the urgency that we went to COVID lockdown to happen with this. Because here's the thing. Imagine it's a car going towards the edge. Like, the longer we wait, the harder it is going to be to stop. You know, back here, 20 years ago, it was like, okay, sure, we do all this stuff. Okay, we're fine. But people didn't. Now we're cranking her in fifth gear towards the edge. And we need to do a sweet handbrake turn away from the cliff. Okay, just like this video right here. Nice. And yeah, that's what we need to do. There's a lot of things, but first of all, we need people to get involved and kind of work on it. Okay, thank you. Give me a good mark, please.